More healing drafts for you, revered mother.
To work?
If you find anything, please bring it in.
There was no word for heaven or for earth, for sea or sky. All that existed was... I don't understand. I thought the children of my families were together.
What can I do for you?
Iron Bull said the charges were at my disposal. Do you have any suggestions on how to use them?
Nothing jumps out at me. If I come up with any ideas, I'll let you know.
I'd like to know more about the Iron Bull.
The Chief. First time I met him, he saved my life. I never thought I'd work for a Canary, but he grows on you. He's not like any commander I've ever worked for. That's for damn sure.
How did a Tevinter soldier wind up in a Kunari spy's mercenary company?
I wasn't a soldier at the time. I was in some trouble, trying to flee Tevinter. A Tribune and his men caught me in a border town tavern. They meant to make an example of me. Bull killed them. Gave up his eye doing it. Patched me up and asked if I was looking for work. I've been putting up with his jokes ever since.
That's how he lost the eye?
Yes. The guards had me on the tavern floor when Bull came inside and yelled for them to stop. One of them saw trouble coming and figured he'd finish me off. The guard had a flare. Bull put himself between me and the blow. Big old idiot. Didn't even know me.
How's Iron Bull as a commander?
If you know what you're doing and hold up your end, he's easy. He doesn't accept any less. If he keeps us alive, he leads from the front, and if you've an idea that'll win the fight, he listens. I've seen bands whose captains had to prove they were swinging the biggest sword. Bull isn't like that. The charges might give him more lip than you'd expect, but every one of us would lay down our lives for the big ass.
Is it strange to work for a Kunari?
He hasn't tried to convert us to the Qun, if that's what you're asking. Bull's charges don't care who you light a candle for, so long as your shield stays up. If he hadn't told me he was Ben Hasrath, I'd have thought he'd left that life behind.
I didn't expect he'd tell you all that he was a spy.
Not the whole band, but those who've been around long enough to trust. He figures most of us would find out sooner or later, and it should come from him. Eyes to eye, he says. It's never messed up a job. He just writes letters back home. Lots of the boys write letters back home.
We'll talk later.
They've got good form. Cullen's putting his Templar training to good use.
Did Cullen tell you he was a Templar? He's not wearing the armor.
He didn't have to. Might not be a Templar shield, but it's a Templar holding it. He angles the shield just a bit down. Helps direct fire or acid away, so it doesn't spray right into your face. Kunari learned the same thing when we trained to fight Tevinter mages. Your Templar's doing good work.
I'm impressed by what Cullen has accomplished with the troops.
Damn right. It takes time to build a group into a team, but he's got their loyalty. Now he just needs them to make a decent shield wall, and they'll be good to go. Biggest problem for the Inquisition right now isn't on the front line. It's at the top. You've got no leader, no Inquisitor.
Cassandra's been the driving force of this Inquisition. She's the leader in all but name.
Cassandra's a seeker. From what I gather, that's a bit like a Ben Hasrath. She's a good hunter and a great fighter, but she doesn't see the big picture. Too busy searching for answers. My people don't pick leaders from the strongest, or the smartest, or even the most talented. We pick the ones willing to make the hard decisions, and live with the consequences. Who knows? Maybe you sealed the breach. The Chantry gets off its ass and all those soldiers go home and get fat.
You think?
It could happen. It won't, but it could. What can I do for you?
I'd like to know more about your work with the Ben Hasrath.
Ben Hasrath is actually a general term. You've got the secret police who investigate problems inside our territory. You've got the re-educators who take people with problems and fix their minds. Or make them disappear. And then you've got the spies.
And you're a spy.
Close. I am now, I suppose. But that's not how I started. They sent me to Saharan because they needed someone who could fight and hunt down problems. That whole island was a sack of cats. Incursions from Tevinter, Tal Vashath, and native rebels fighting both sides. And in the middle, me, trying to wrangle the rebels and restore order.
I can't imagine that was easy.
Nope. I hunted down a lot of rebels. Lost a lot of friends to the Vince, or the Fog Warriors, or the Tal Vashath. One day I woke up and couldn't think of a damned reason to keep doing my job. Turned myself into the re-educators.
Not many people would have the courage to do that.
I thought about letting some rebel kill me, but I couldn't give any of those bastards the satisfaction. The Ben Hasrath ordered me to go to Orlais, ostensibly as a Tal Vashath, work undercover. That's how I ended up here.
I'm glad you're here, Bull.
Me too.
If you ever need to talk more about all this, let me know.
Nah, it was a long time ago. Thanks, though. can I help you?
I'd like to know more about the Kunari.
You writing a book?
It's your culture, and I'd like to know you better.
You could just ask.
I am.
All right. What do you want to know?
What's it like growing up under the Kun?
The Tamasrans raise us in these units of kids all our own age. They're like teachers or chantry sisters. They also help figure out what jobs we should do. They had me pegged for military work early on. When they learned I could hit stuff and lie, they started training me for the Ben Hasra.
That must have been a good day for you.
Yes, it's like being a block of stone with a sculptor working on you. One day, the last of the crap gets knocked off, and you can see your real shape. What you're supposed to be. That's a good day.
I've heard there's no marriage among the Kunari.
Yeah, that's true. Kunari love our friends like anyone does, but we don't have sex with them.
Kunari don't have sex?
Oh, we definitely have sex. They're Tamasrans who pop your cork whenever you need it.
Seriously?
Yes. It's not a big deal like it is here. It's like, I don't know, going to see a healer. Sometimes it's this long, involved thing. It takes all day, leaves you walking funny. Other times you're in and out in 5 minutes. Thank you. See you next week.
I could work with that.
I know, right? No drama. Still, it's more fun here. Fewer rituals, more making it up as you go along. Plus, you folk have redheads. Redheads.
How do the Kunari rule themselves?
It's pretty simple. We've got the matriarchy, the priesthood, and the military. The priesthood figures out how Kunari should live in theory. The matriarchy makes it work in practice. And the military keeps the Kunari safe from outside threats.
Does it actually work like that? Is there much infighting?
Not like you're thinking of. People disagree, yeah, but the priests are there to solve disagreements. Here in Olay, politicking comes from people putting their own gain ahead of the gains of society. If you do that among the Kunari, the Ben Hasrath set you straight, or kill you.
How is everyday life different for Kunari?
Depends on your job, I guess. Some are just about the same. A baker in Valroyo gets up, gets dressed, and starts work. A baker in Parvolan does the same thing. They don't care about the Empire or the Q. Mostly they worry about breaking eggs and hope the dough rises right.
It can't be exactly the same. The Kunari have no personal freedoms.
How many personal freedoms do you figure that baker in Valroyo has? Life isn't about freedom. The baker in Parvolan wonders if she'll be given enough eggs to do her work. Will they come on time? Will the kitchen workers get her bread while it's fresh, or will they come late and blame her because it's stale? Same crap in Valroyo. People are just people.
Do you ever think about what would happen if the Kunari conquered Orlais or Ferelden?
Some folks, like Cassandra or Cullen, would do fine if they didn't die fighting. Those two love rules. But the mages, look at Solus, all that wandering in the Fade. They'd at least kill him. Both Sarah and Varric would mouth off until they ended up re-educated, drugged until their minds broke. So, to answer your question, no, I don't think about it much at all.
The word Kunari, is that the race or the religion?
Both. Kind of. The humans and elves who follow the Qun are the Vidathari. The Kunari who break away from the Qun are Talvashar, deserters.
What about Kunari who existed before the Kyun?
The people we came from. They're called the Kossith, but we don't use that word for the race. We came south to Thedas because the Kossith were... I don't know. We had to leave. The stories aren't clear. But I don't expect they look much like us. Whatever they are.
See you later, Bull.
See ya. How's it going?
So, how did you get the name Iron Bull?
I picked it. We don't have names under the cube. Just, I don't know, job descriptions, I guess. When I came to Orlais, I chose the Iron Bull for myself.
But why specifically Iron Bull?
This may surprise you, but I really like hitting things. Also, it's the Iron Bull, technically. I like having an article at the front. It makes it sound like I'm not even a person, just a mindless weapon. An implement of destruction. That really works for me.
See you later, Bull.
See ya. How's it going?
See you later, Bull.
See ya.
Travel safely.
Please send Fisser our thanks for the refreshments. Inquisitor?
I want to hear more about you.
Compared to yours, my life will seem dull indeed.
Your name, Blackwall, doesn't sound Orlesian. Marcher, then. Ferelden.
I was from the Free Marchers originally. Markham. That was a long time ago. Another life.
I hear that many wardens were once criminals.
You're right. And when you join, your past is forgotten, so let's leave it that way.
What did you do before you became a warden?
I was a soldier, a nobody trained to wield a sword and follow orders. I grew weary of fighting other men's wars.
So you became a warden?
More or less. Becoming a Grey Warden was the first time I felt like I mattered. The life I led before seems hollow in comparison. Perhaps one day it will fade away.
Why did you join the Wardens?
Because they remember honor and sacrifice. Words that have little meaning to the rest of us. Because they lay down their lives for those they have sworn to protect. We all need to believe there are such men in the world. I needed to believe I could be one of them.
We can continue this discussion at another time.
Very well. Something on your mind?
What do you think of the Inquisition?
I expected more. More men, better equipment. You may have Andraste's favor, but wars are won by men, soldiers.
Avoiding war altogether would be ideal.
True enough. Still, it never hurts to be prepared. One thing I will say about your men. They're passionate, devoted. You inspire them. Build on that foundation, and you will have an army that makes nations tremble.
You must have some feelings about our friends.
I fear for Cassandra sometimes. The way she throws herself into battle. I've never known a warrior like her.
What do you think of the Inquisition's cause?
Restoring order is a goal I support wholeheartedly. But that's not the end of it, is it? Not by a half. The Lady Seeker believes we are restoring the Chantry. Others say it needs reform. I don't know where you stand on the matter, and I'll admit I haven't made up my mind either.
What do you think about all this trouble between the Mages and Templars?
Looking at it from where we stand, it seems inevitable. But that could be hindsight. How many of us actually saw it coming? Either way, I don't think the Chantry will ever recover.
What do you think of Haven?
It's a war camp that was once a pilgrim's refuge. It's the state of the world, though, isn't it? Holy ground turned into a battlefield. Pity about that temple. Would have been nice to see it.
What do you think of my advisors?
Leliana seems nice. Also a little frightening, but mostly nice.
Does Leliana frighten you? Has she said anything to you?
No, she hasn't said anything. I'd just rather not offend her. I don't want to wake up with a blade in my kidneys if I can help it.
What do you think of my advisors?
Josephine's lovely, and craftier than you'd expect. The Inquisition could not have picked a better ambassador.
You must have some feelings about our friends.
Have you seen the stories Varric's been writing? His descriptions of me are colorful, to say the least.
What do you think of my advisors?
Cullen. He's got the look of a man who's been through too much. He's seen the best and the worst of humanity, and I think he still struggles with where that leaves him. Still, I trust him to watch my back.
What do you think of my advisors?
Liliana seems nice. Also a little frightening, but mostly nice.
You must have some feelings about our friends.
Don't play Diamondback with Solus. You've been warned. Taught him the game last night. He turned around and beat me at it. Lost everything. Had to walk back to my quarters with only a bucket for my bits.
You must have some feelings about our friends.
Have you seen the stories Varric's been writing? His descriptions of me are colorful, to say the least. I'll be right here if you need me.
Yes.
May I ask you about the Chantry?
I have no better answers on the topic than anyone might, but I'll tell you what I can.
Do you really believe the Chantry is worth preserving?
If you ask my opinion, it is. Absolutely. Cast the Chantry aside and new problems replace old ones. We will have learned nothing from history. The people need stability, and the Chantry needs a new purpose. Andraste had a dream for us. It can still be achieved.
So, what should this new purpose be?
A dedication to what is truly important. Instead of building cathedrals and sewing gowns for the divine, the Chantry used to spend its coin feeding the poor. If we are to spread the Maker's word across the world, we must do so with open hearts and open hands.
That sounds rather idealistic of you.
Does it? I do not think it's so unachievable. The Chantry has many good, honest people. They just need direction and inspiration. They need to be freed from centuries of adherence to tradition and ceremony. A chance for renewal is at our fingertips. It does not have to come with utter chaos.
Will the Chantry replace Divine Justinia?
They will try. Once the priests withdraw for the Grand Consensus, it is against Chantry law for them to emerge without naming a new divine. Sometimes it takes days, or weeks, or even months. The problem now is that no clear successor to Justinia exists. All worthy clerics died with her at the conclave.
So what happens if they can't agree on someone?
Theoretically, they will argue until exhaustion takes them or they see reason. Practically, however, if the Grand Consensus goes on too long, the Chantry will crumble. Any cleric with ambition but little sense will see this as her one chance, and plenty of such clerics exist. We shall see what happens. The Inquisition must act in the meantime.
If they do choose a new divine, will you serve her?
That depends on whether she would have me. I am a rebel now, remember? And even if she would, I do not know. It would depend on what type of divine she is. I am no longer in a position to follow blindly, and no new divine could expect such obedience now.
What influence does Chancellor Roderick really wield?
He's a bureaucrat, responsible for communicating the divine's will to the rest of the Chantry. Therefore, he's accustomed to the clerics hanging on his every word, hoping his influence will benefit them. Despite that, Roderick is not a bad man. He's frightened, and believes his place is to fill the gap left by Most Holy's death. Some might agree. As far down the chain of command as he is, there is no one left above him.
How big a problem could he be?
No more than he is already. He sent his message to the College of Clerics. That is the only card he had to play. Dealing with him further only lends him credibility he doesn't deserve.
Thank you.
Lady Trevelyan of Ostwick, representing the Inquisition.
What a pleasure to meet you, my lady. Seeing the same faces at every event becomes so tiresome. So you must be a guest of Madame de Fer, or are you here for Duc Bastien?
Are you here on business? I have heard the most curious tales of you. I cannot imagine half of them are true.
What have you heard about me?
Some say that when the veil opened, Andraste herself delivered you from the Fate.
I'm not familiar with that name. I was invited here by First Enchanter Vivienne.
Madame de Fer is a fond nickname the court has given Lady Vivienne.
I've heard she finds it amusing.
I've heard very little about Duc Bastien.
He hasn't been seen much at court lately.
His business with the Council of Heralds often takes him from home for long periods. It can't be good for a man of his years.
And of course, there's the Civil War. Bastien probably wishes to distance himself from the actions of his one-time son-in-law.
Tearing up the Dales in a foolish bid for power? It will end in disgrace for Gaspard. Everyone knows it.
Some of those storytellers may have gotten carried away.
But only for the best effect. The Inquisition is a ripe subject for wild tales.
The Inquisition. What a lot of pig shit. Washed-up sisters and crazed seekers. No one can take them seriously. Everyone knows it's just an excuse for a bunch of political outcasts to grab power.
The Inquisition is working to restore peace and order to Thedas.
Here comes the outsider, restoring peace with an army. We know what your Inquisition truly is. If you were a woman of honor, you'd step outside and answer the charges.
My dear Marquis, how unkind of you to use such language in my house to my guests. You know such rudeness is intolerable.
Madame Vivienne, I humbly beg your pardon.
You should. Whatever am I going to do with you, my dear? My lady, you're the wounded party in this unfortunate affair. What would you have me do with this foolish, foolish man?
I think the Marquis has seen the error of his ways.
By the grace of Andraste, you have your life, my dear. Do be more careful with it. I'm delighted you could attend this little gathering. I've so wanted to meet you. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Vivienne, first enchanter of Montsimard and enchantress to the Imperial Court.
Is that Marquis going to pose a problem?
His aunt is the Vicomtesse of Mont de Glace. Not a powerful family, but well respected. And very devout. Alphonse will be disowned for this. It's not the first time he's brought his aunt disgrace, but I'm sure it'll be the last. And after such a public humiliation, I expect he'll run off to the Dales to join the Empress's war effort. Either to make a good end, or to win back a modicum of self-respect.
Charmed, Lady Vivian.
Ah, but I didn't invite you to the chateau for pleasantries. With Divine Justinia dead, the Chantry's in shambles. Only the Inquisition might restore sanity and order to our frightened people. As the leader of the last loyal mages of Thedas, I feel it only right that I lend my assistance to your cause.
Is your interest in the Inquisition Madame de Fer, or is it more personal?
Aren't you charming? It's professional, of course.
What exactly can you do for the Inquisition?
I am well versed in the politics of the Orlesian Empire. I know every member of the Imperial Court personally. I have all the resources remaining to the Circle at my disposal. And I'm a mage of no small talent. Will that do?
Does that mean you'd be aiding the Inquisition from the Imperial Palace?
Ordinarily, I would be happy to serve as liaison to the court, but these are not ordinary times. The veil has been ripped apart and there is a hole in the sky. It is now the duty of every mage to work towards sealing the breach. And so I would join the Inquisition on the field of battle.
You say you led the last of the loyal mages. Loyal to whom?
To the people of Thedas, of course. We have not forgotten the commandment, as some have, that magic exists to serve man. I support any effort to restore such order.
So you're in favor of returning the mages to the Circle, then?
Where else can mages safely learn to master their talents? We need an institution to protect and nurture magic. Maker knows, magic will find neither on its own.
You say you led the last of the loyal mages. Loyal to whom?
To the people of Thedas, of course. We have not forgotten the commandment, as some have, that magic exists to serve man. I support any effort to restore such order.
What's in this for you?
The same thing anyone gets by fighting this chaos. The chance to meet my enemy, to decide my fate. I won't wait quietly for destruction.
You say you led the last of the loyal mages. Loyal to whom?
To the people of Thedas, of course. We have not forgotten the commandment, as some have, that magic exists to serve man. I support any effort to restore such order.
Are you devout? What's your opinion of the Chantry?
I was a great admirer of the late Divine Justinia V. The Chantry, at its best, unites the disparate cultures of Thedas and looks after its most vulnerable. Had she lived, Justinia could have accomplished so much.
You are aware that the Chantry hasn't sanctioned this Inquisition?
The Chantry is leaderless. They're in no position to officially sanction anything. Besides, my dear, if there is one virtue the Chant of Light teaches us, it is forgiveness. Once the Inquisition has sealed the breach, I'm sure the new Divine will not care in the slightest about official permission.
You say you led the last of the loyal mages. Loyal to whom?
To the people of Thedas. We have not forgotten the command. I support any effort to restore such order.
The Inquisition will be happy to have you, Lady Vivian.
Great things are beginning, my dear. I can promise you that.
seen Enchanter Vivienne. There was no word for heaven or for earth.
You came from the Circle at Ostwick, did you not? Senior Enchanter Lydia was a dear friend of mine. Were you at all acquainted?
Lydia was my instructor. She was almost a mother to me.
I never met a wiser soul than her. I understand she was killed by one of her own students when the Ostwick Circle rebelled. I think we both agree that this war must end.
The Circle had plenty of problems, but it's an institution we sorely need.
I wish more people understood the truth of this. Justinia's death has shattered the balance of power in Thedas. If it is not restored quickly, countless lives will be lost. Mages, Templars, innocent people of all kinds now look to the Inquisition to decide their fate.
I'll try not to let them down.
Failure is a luxury we cannot afford, my dear. For almost 1,000 years, the world believed it was in the hands of the Maker. And now many believe you are the agent of his will. Whatever the truth is, that belief gives you power.
Nobody should claim to know the will of the Maker. Not me, and not the Chantry.
Perhaps nobody should. But if no one leads the way, many will be left behind in darkness. I've stolen enough of your time, my dear. Don't let me keep you. Yes?
I wanted to ask you about the Circle of Magi.
Of course. What do you wish to know?
You must have an opinion of the Templars after living so long in the Circle.
Having opinions about Templars, my dear, is exactly like having opinions about mages or Navarrans or men. I have known some who were impossible to endure and some who were utterly charming. I have suffered insults at the hands of those in the armor, but no more than I endured from nobles or tradesmen in Val Royal. Personally, I have found the Templars a useful tool, skilled at keeping more unpleasant elements at bay.
If the Circle disbanded, how can you still belong to it?
The Circle is an idea, my dear, and an idea cannot be dissolved. Many of the first enchanters voted for rebellion, caring little that anything short of a unanimous decision would pit mage against mage. Rather than dissolving it, Grand Enchanter Fiona's vote split the Circle in two. The rebels follow her, the loyalists follow me.
If you led all the Loyalists, why are you only First Enchanter and not Grand Enchanter?
Grand Enchanters are elected, and since there are no First Enchanters besides myself, no vote can be held. I could name myself Grand Enchanter, but the title holds no meaning now. When the circles are restored, that will change.
I've never been to the Montsemard Circle. What was it like?
A place of great history and tradition, with the greatest library of magical history outside of the Imperium. It was deeply involved in the Great Game, as you might expect of anyone living in Orlais. The mages there were quite competitive, but it was stimulating to be always pushed to exceed the abilities of my peers.
How did we come to this state with the circles in revolt?
You, my dear, are far too wise not to have realized that many of our colleagues live with their eyes closed. Safe from the world inside their towers, they thought only of the Templars and their own resentment. Kirkwall gave the world a reason to remember its fear of magic. A mage killed hundreds with a snap of their fingers. Across Thedas, a new tangible fear of magic grew. Commoners and nobles alike called out to the Chantry for protection. But the malcontents in the towers thought nothing of this. They cared only for themselves and for their anger at the new Templar restrictions. When a mage attempted to assassinate Divine Justinia, again, the mages protested the investigation. The leadership chose to vote on independence based on the intolerable conditions imposed by the Templars. sparing no thought to the fact that magic was more feared in the aftermath of these attacks than it had been since Tevinter's day. So long as they had their freedom, they could care little for riots, angry mobs, or about pitting mages against each other.
Are you familiar with Grand Enchanter Fiona?
We've met. Before her horrendously ill-timed and selfish vote for independence, I thought her adequate at her job. In her dotage, she could not handle looking after the well-being of so many people. We would have done better to replace her years ago, to let her spend time gardening.
Did they have cause to rebel?
In the aftermath of their terrorist attacks? Was that really the most opportune time to break away? By all means, protest abuses by the Templars. Just don't do it in a way that says mages support wholesale murder. By voting when they did, my colleagues all but declared war upon the ordinary people of Thedas. A war in which we are outnumbered 100 to 1.
I thought the fighting was only between mages and Templars. Why are mages fighting mages?
The vote for independence was carried by only a small margin, but Fiona chose to let the motion stand. Those who opposed a rash declaration of war against the entire free world had little choice. By breaking from the Chantry when they did, the rebels declared themselves in support of mass murder. Anyone who did not wish to support terrorism and the slaughter of innocents was forced to take arms against the rebels. Yes?
Do you think that you and I might someday...
I don't see how that benefits me in the slightest, my dear. Yes?
I wanted to ask you about the Circle of Magi.
Of course. What do you wish to know? Yes?
I'd like to know more about you, Madame Vivienne.
Whatever would you like to know?
Your accent's not Orlesian. Where exactly are you from?
I am from the Circle, my dear. One's country of origin rarely matters there. But if you must know, I was born in Wycombe in the Free Marches. I was sent to the Ostwick Circle, but I transferred to Monsignat while still an apprentice.
I'm curious how a Circle mage winds up a courtier.
Nobody winds up at court, my dear. It takes a great deal of effort to arrive there. I caught the eye of Duke Bastien de Ghislaine, an advantageous connection that opened many doors. When the position of Enchanter to the Imperial Court became vacant, I was able to secure it.
You're married to the Duke de Ghislaine?
Of course not, my dear. Don't be ridiculous. Marriage is the business of alliance and inheritance. I'm Bastien's mistress.
And what does the Duchess de Ghislaine think of this arrangement?
We got along quite well. Duchess Nicoline and I used to host musical salons together. She was a great patron of the arts. She passed away from a fever a few years ago, the poor dear.
What duties does a court enchanter have?
I am tasked with providing assistance to the Empress on arcane matters. Most of my predecessors restricted this to lighting lamps and doing parlor tricks. In such troubled times as these, however, I provide political advice to Her Majesty on the subject of the Mage Rebellion.
Speak only the word. Sing.
I will take
only
these
the
injury
chant.
reports to research and
Then
At your service.